Hey folks, how you doing? It's weird, isn't it? It's a weird world we're living in right now. But I think it's always been a weird world. And it's just gotten a little more visibly weird lately. I think things are strange. Things have always been strange. But thinking about some of the stuff that I've been seeing on the news, and maybe I'm harping on this too much, but here goes. We get a lot of predictions. And every time one of these predictions comes up, I look at it and I go, okay, that's what you're predicting. And one of the things that occurred to me last night when I saw, the latest prediction from the WHO or somebody was something I remembered from when I was living in Japan. I was there from the early 90s until the early 2000s. And in about the late 90s, emailing and texting became a big thing all over the world, and of course the Japanese were eager to get in on it. The problem is that the Japanese language, the written Japanese language, is extremely complex. So a lot of you watching this probably already know this, but you have three writing systems. You have hiragana, which is used to write native Japanese words and used for other purposes, which is complicated. You have katakana, which is used to write foreign words, non-Japanese words, and it's related to hiragana, but it's not the same. And then you have the kanji, which is a bear for everybody. These are Chinese characters that are used by the Japanese in a uniquely Japanese way that was not intended by the Chinese people who came up with them. And these Chinese characters have, in Japanese, have multiple pronunciations. So every Chinese character has at least two different ways to pronounce it in Japanese, and some of them have, I don't even know how many some of them have. Some of them seem to have, 10 or more different ways to pronounce them. So, and they're very complicated looking characters. So what happened in Japan was that people were texting and emailing each other, writing their texts and emails in Roman letters. And the problem of how to make it so that a compact device like a cell phone or even a personal computer could type in Japanese seemed insurmountable to a lot of people. Then there's a precedent for this because the Japanese never did come up with a typewriter, for example, that could type Japanese. I mean, there is a version of it, but it's this incredibly bizarre contraption that nobody could use. So even when I first moved to Japan and started working for a film company, our contracts were handwritten. Not the English ones, but the Japanese ones were handwritten because that's how you did it. So because this problem was so complex and seemed to be so insurmountable, there were articles appearing in newspapers and magazines at the time saying, is the entire Japanese language going to fundamentally change in the 21st century? Or is the use of Chinese characters going to go away? Is the use of hiragana and katakana going to go away? Are we going to all be typing Japanese in Roman letters? And people were seriously proposing this for a little while at least. Sorry, my hair went crazy. But eventually the problem was figured out, and nowadays you can type on your cell phone in Japanese. It's a cumbersome system, and it kind of is a bear to figure out, but it can be done. And most people, who've learned it can do it fairly quickly. So this is what I think about when I see these predictions. The predictions they're giving us about the virus and the disease are based on the idea that current conditions obtain or remain forever, or for the foreseeable future or even the unforeseeable future. And that's the most panicky ones. But my 56 years here on Earth have given me the sense that things are always changing. Things are constantly changing. And I don't know, I'm not trying to propose that the problem of solving the COVID-19 coronavirus stuff is exactly the same or even comparable to the problem of writing Japanese with a cell phone. But what I am saying is that changes come up that the prognosticators, the predictors, don't foresee. And you would be stupid to make a prediction based on the idea that something's going to fundamentally change. So you don't do that. It's like that cartoon that showed the guy doing a math problem, and right in the middle of the series of numerals it says, then a miracle occurs, and then he gets his sum right after it. You don't want to be that guy when you're predicting something, because that would be stupid. But my feeling is things always change, and so I'm kind of open to, I don't know what's going to happen next, because I never know what's going to happen next. And all the people I've ever listened to who've told me what's going to happen next have all turned out to be wrong. Another thing is about science, and I am a nerd for science. I'm not one of these sort of religious people that goes, the scientists are all wrong, and religion, it's in the scriptures, and people mistake me for that all the time, and I don't know why. The reason I got interested in Buddhism specifically is it's a religion that did not fear science, and I loved that about Buddhism. But science is practiced by scientists, by people, by human beings. At one point, when all this stuff was starting to ramp up, I was pondering the idea of doing a video where I would get a doctor on with me, and we would talk and we'd try to calm people down. And what I realized is I don't know that many doctors, and among the doctors I do know happen to be some of the most panicky people I know, so it didn't work. I couldn't get it done like that. It's my what do you call it? What's that word? Quarantine hair. You'll notice a jump there because it took me like a minute to come up with the word quarantine. So, that being said, and I hope I don't spark any arguments in the comments section about that, I thought I would talk about something that's totally off base, and probably I shouldn't talk about on a video, because if I get too much criticism or blowback for this idea in the comments section, I'll never be able to finish it. But I'm kind of far enough along that I feel like maybe I can do this. So, I've been emailing to a friend of mine about my next book, and I had some thoughts about this, and some of my thoughts about this were about this book by Philip K. Dick called Veilus, which I read in high school, and it's still in print, or it's back in print. It was out of print when I read it, but it's in print now, and you can find it pretty easily. It's a fascinating book. Philip K. Dick is a science fiction author who had a lot of strange experiences in 1974, and he never really understood those experiences. They were sort of mystical experiences, weird experiences, and he wrote a bunch of books trying to explain them. But one of the most interesting ones is this book, Veilus, because he writes from the perspective of an omniscient narrator, which is a kind of a technique you do in fiction where you're kind of, if you've read any novels, you've come across this sort of narrator who's not one of the characters in the book, but he or she is just sort of narrating it as if they can see everything that's going on. So but his omniscient narrator is named Philip K. Dick, and he's telling the story of a guy named Horselover Fat. And Horselover is from the idea that Philip apparently means a lover of horses, and fat is from the idea, or whatever, the fact that Dick comes from the word fat. It means, so Horselover Fat is Philip K. Dick. And he tells you that. The narrator of the book tells you that the character he's writing about is Philip K. Dick, but then he also treats him like a totally separate character. And in doing this, he creates a narrative where he can talk about his experiences from a kind of a different viewpoint and examine them that way. And I find that very interesting. And this is what I wrote to my friend, and which I probably shouldn't even mention to you, but I'll mention it to you anyway, you anonymous 1,000 people out there. La-di-da, where does it go? I started wondering if I could do a book like that. My experiences in Zen have often been striking and profound. I'm not entirely certain what they mean. I'm not even sure that my Zen heroes like Dogen or my teachers got it right. I assume we have shared some common experiences. In fact, I would say I know we have shared some common experiences. We follow a tradition that puts these experiences into a framework. That framework has been tweaked and modified over time and is passed through several cultures who've put their own spin on it, including the United States, which is now putting its spin on it, and various cultures in Europe, which are putting their spin on it, which has never happened before. It's only been Asian cultures before this, and everybody's kind of putting their little bit into it. I tend to trust that tradition mainly because part of the tradition is a refusal to overreach or pretend it knows more than it does. It refuses to settle on an easy explanation or even a difficult one. And this is what I love about Zen, and it's what a lot of people hate about Zen, is that often you read a guy like Dogen and it's very cryptic and you're like, what the hell is he saying? Well, he doesn't want to put a pin on the thing he's saying because he knows that's not the right way to tackle it. So here's we go. It, meaning the tradition, points the way for others to experience the same sort of mystical experiences as its founders had. Maybe it does this in the hope that someday someone will come along with a better theory to account for them. I just wrote that as I thought of it. I don't know. Or maybe it doesn't even care about theory at all. Nishijima Roshi used to say, people like to have explanations. He would just throw that out there every once in a while. He didn't seem concerned with whether these explanations were right or not. Well, I would say he wanted the explanations to be as good as possible. But he understood that no explanation was ever 100% correct. It was just a kind of a model for the thing that you're looking at, the way the word apple is not an apple, and the way the word apple is not a computer. I'm pretty funny. Anyway, but he knew people liked having explanations. So I thought, I wonder if I can write a book like that. And I've been working on this for probably a year now. The idea of making it like Philip K. Dick's Valis only came to me about a month and a half ago, and I've been trying to see where I can go with it. But the idea of trying to write about these mystical experiences, or I don't even like the word mystical, but I'm skeptical, like Philip K. Dick is, but then you have experiences that don't fit your framework of the world, and what do you do with those? I think that's what Philip K. Dick was trying to answer, but he didn't have a grounding in a tradition like Zen. He was aware of Zen, and he references it here and there, but the sources he was looking at weren't the greatest, so he didn't quite get it. And I don't know if it would have helped him with his experiences or not, who knows. There you go. That's just a weird, rambling talk, which I have no idea what I'm going to title it when I make a video. So you'll know that because you've clicked on it and seen the title that I came up with after. But right now, as I'm speaking, I have no idea. But anyway, that's it. As always, my Patreon and PayPal links are below, and that is how I make my living, and I really appreciate the people who are still donating to me, even in the midst of this vast financial crisis that's befalling all of civilization, with millions of people out of work and everything else, and I really hope we get things on track. I've been seeing these protesters out on the street, and on the one hand, I wouldn't go out on the street with a crowd of people mixing together, protesting things and stuff. But on the other hand, I have total sympathy for them because not everybody is weathering this crisis sitting on their couch watching Netflix, like is the thing that the common expression that people keep rolling out. For a lot of people, it's really, really hard, and they want assurances that this is not all for nothing, and that's valid, along with all the other stuff that we're seeing that's also valid. That's valid too. So my advice is if you're one of my Ohio peeps, don't go out there in a crowd and protest, but I do support the struggle you're going through, and I do understand your reasons for getting extraordinarily frustrated by what's happening. So that's for whatever that's worth. That's how I feel about it, and that's how I feel about the people back home who are really, really struggling, as some of us are not struggling nearly as much. So we'll see you later. Have a good time all the time. Bye.